Hello, my name is Josie and you're listening to the Yoga Local podcast. Welcome. This is our studio here in Wellingborough and I'm recording this, so if you're joining us and watching this, hello. Today I wanted to talk about beyond the detox. Right, January's coming up and we've got a cleanse in January, a cleanse program, and it's online and it's guided. So I wanted to talk about that, but also I had an experience this week where I went through a purification process. And so I just wanted to touch in on that as well. And I think it's important for us to clear up, what it is to cleanse and purify, and what does it mean to you? And I've often kind of mentioned that it's a bit like explaining that breathing and breath work isn't as simple as just breathing in and out. Cleansing and purifying isn't just as simple as making a few tweaks to your diet, and especially not just for one single month, right? And on some level we know this, right? The wisdom part of us, the inner knowingness, knows that there's more to it and that we may have to invest a little bit more of our time and energy. The problem is that what I see from my own experience as well is that most of us are bypassing that wisdom and choosing instead to spend our time and energy trying to sort things by reaching and grasping for things outside of ourselves. So looking to change other people or change the circumstances of our environment. And even when we get that very clear memo that comes from within, that actually there's some truth in that, I do need to do more. I do need to make a shift here. Again, we'll ignore that call. We'll damp it down. We'll doubt it and we'll mistrust it. And again, this is where our practices can start to redress that balance and take that moment to pause and actually listen to that internal voice. The reason we have difficulty, in my opinion, and also in the opinion of the wisdom traditions, is the reason that we're having such a hard time really coming to our own sense of truth, because we don't trust ourselves anymore. We don't trust those answers that come within. We've let our outside worlds, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, accumulate a whole lot of noise, a whole lot of waste, a whole lot of confusion, and a whole lot of negative energy. And we can call this debris, toxic waste. In the Ayurveda tradition, it would be called armor, this toxicity, which prevents us from feeling ourself and being connected to our own innate qualities of joy, love, compassion. The unhelpful thinking, the imprints of our negative actions, the aftermath of all our unpleasant experiences, they add up, and often it feels really, really hard to move past them. It's almost like, well, that's who I am now. We start to, we start to believe our own stories about who we are and who we've become, and we get more and more disconnected from the truth of who we are. And you can think of this as your original blueprint, the reason that you're here, that understanding of yourself and what you're here to do. We lose connection to that, and we start to, take on the needs and the wants of the world and his wife, right? And that's when we start to suffer, and that's when we start to feel unfulfilled in our life, because we know and we recognize somewhere along the line we've lost a sense of self. So the way back to that is through our practices. Yoga and Ayurveda are practices that are scientific, time-tested, and they will help us to find the methods, the methodology, to move us more and more closer to true self, to wholeness, to oneness. Yoga is union, unity. That's the ultimate goal of yoga. Yoga isn't postures. We've had that conversation before. Yoga is a state, and it's also a set of, or it's a tradition that moves us to that state. Asana postures are just one element, and so is cleansing. And actually asana can be used as cleansing, and in our cleansing program I'll explain more about that. But cleansing plays a major role in this pursuit of becoming more connected to ourselves, and therefore more connected to that internal wisdom, and then therefore more connected to our own innate human qualities that are inbuilt, we were born with, we were blessed with them. You know, the odds of us being on this earth to experience our life as who we are is unfathomable, right? And we have all this human technology, and we have all these gifts that we are suppressing or have suppressed, that we have kind of built on top of with all the conditioning of the world and societal pressure, and we've lost sight of who we are. And our practices are going to help us to get us back. And part of the process is the unraveling process, is the cleansing process, is the purification process. And for sure, right, there are elements where we may have overindulged, and physically, right, we need to do some work. That's part of the problem. You know, our diet is really intrinsic to how well we feel. If we don't put in good whole foods that nourish and help us to thrive and grow, we end up feeling sluggish, we end up feeling maybe even depressed, and then that starts to feed us back into that cycle of I'm not good enough, I can't trust myself, or I'll try and reach out everywhere else and grasp and grab at things in order to feel validated in the world. And again, that connection gets even more obscured. So for sure, hectic lives, food, environment, pollution are all things that we're taking on board on a day-to-day, moment-by-moment basis. And they're all robbing us of our energetic vitality, and robbing us of our connection to ourselves. But what you might not have considered so much, and what the wisdom traditions teach us, is some of the main causes for this disconnect and our unhappiness and lack of fulfillment as a result of that disconnected is caused by negative karma. So karma is an action, basically. It's a derivative of the word karma, kriya. That's kr, part of the word is tells us that it's about action, and karma is an act, and it's the law of karma, as the name suggests. It's a law. And when the law is that when we act, there is a consequence. Now, that consequence may not arise immediately. It may arise in the future. In some traditions, it may arrive in a future life. But the problem is that those negative karmas, if they're not purified, they start to accumulate and build. And again, whether unconsciously or consciously, we are creating a life of suffering for ourselves because of the negative actions that we may be taking. So the past week I've been on a meditation retreat, and it's been using the teachings of the Buddhist tradition with a practice called Vajrasattva sadhana, and yogis will recognize the sadhana part of that and the sattva part of that, because sattva means to purify in the yogic tradition, and sadhana is a committed daily practice. So this is a practice basically involves meditation, mantra, and there's a few other elements to it, and I'm not going to go into detail here. I've gone into a little bit more detail in the blog if you wish, and then if you do and are interested in more about that practice, then let me know. But basically there's a number of elements to it which help us to, in my mind, it's the remembrance part of knowing we are way more powerful than we are currently giving ourselves credit for, and that's because of all the all the coatings, all of the toxicity that we're carrying that needs to be removed. And so the purifying process involves us remembering that we have the capacity. Now, in the Buddha tradition, it's about relying on the Dharma of Buddha, the teachings of Buddha, and the idea that Buddha represents complete purification, emptiness, and we're kind of aspiring to become Buddha-like. But in yoga, there's a similar kind of pathway. We're looking to access the Buddhi mind, the part of the mind that is in more approximation to our soul, to our true self, to that wisdom that's telling us, right, to cleanse, Josie, isn't going to mean just tweaking my diet. To cleanse means I've got to go in and start looking at my mind field. I've got to start looking at what it is that is in the way of me feeling my own innate sense of joy and truth and understanding of who I am. And then start to create the actions, the positive karmas that are going to start to spin the wheel of karma in my favor. Okay, because, you know, everyone tends to think that karma is a bitch, right? But it's cause and effect. So our positive karmas bring positive effects, negative karmas, negative effects. And there also has to be a sense of real, like, bhav, that's the yogic word bhav, like this emotional commitment to wanting to do this work. And that's something that you have to cultivate and practice, because sometimes we don't always feel it, right? And some of these tools and techniques are really designed to help us figure that out. And in the Buddhist tradition, they use the power of regret, and there's this part of the practice is to really feel into the suffering, you know, that you've caused to yourself. Sounds a bit sounds a bit negative, isn't it? But it's a great way of kind of like, you know, sometimes you've got to feel it to want to shift it. So the feeling of real regret, that the suffering that you've caused, not just to yourself but to others, and that brings in that will, that conviction, that desire to not repeat those actions again, and to kind of figure out what the triggers are. And, you know, it's a big conversation. Like, we're complex, and the reasons that we act and behave and show up in the way we do are not always straightforward. And part of the adventure of practice is to start to get under the hood and have a good look, and that's not something that's serving me. That's not something that's serving me. Let's purify this. Let's cleanse that. Let's shift this out the way. And then what are you working from? You know, you're working from a place of more clarity, more confidence, right? And because part of this work, you're going to have to be disciplined. You're going to have to be focused. You're going to have to maybe work past something that feels uncomfortable. And you'll recognize all of this in general asana practice, in our posture practice. Like, sometimes our postures are uncomfortable, and we have to learn to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. This is the path. This is the way that we start to uncover, right, and reveal what's deep within. And yeah, diet is a part of that. We put too much rubbish in our bodies, and our bodies have to process that. Just like, you know, we put in negative imprints in the mind. Our mind then has to process that. So I would like to just remind you that when you're signing up for a cleanse with us, these are the things that we'll be looking to cleanse. There will be a dietary aspect to it, and that just supports. It's a support thing, because the less that we have to digest from our food, right? If our digestion is functioning well, then we can get to work on some of the other things that cloud the mind. It's all bringing us to a state of preparedness, so that we have access to that deep wise, intuitive, deeply capable, deeply confident part of who we are. And then we start to work and operate from that space. So I'm hoping you're feeling inspired to maybe at least have a look at the outline of the cleanse. I'm going to include that in the show notes. But if you really want a holistic approach to cleansing, something that's just a little bit more than what's on your dinner plate, if you want the lifestyle practices, if you want the teachings, if you want the protocols, if you want the runway, if you want the build-up, plus the community, right? Because we've got a really strong community here, and other people will be on the program who you can talk to and have conversations with. And that's another way of helping us to make those commitments, right, to ourselves, to rely on ourselves and become more capable of making good choices. So, friends, are you ready to embark on an adventure of cleansing and purifying? Again, all the details of the cleanse are below this video, and if you do have questions, then I would love to answer them. Please put them in the comments or send me a direct message. Listen to that voice in your head that knows. There will be that knowing voice that knows that there is more to thriving and living well and having radiant health than just fixing a few meals and maybe going to the gym once or twice. You know, there's way more to us than that, and let's give ourselves credit for that, and let's really create the practices and really follow through on our commitments to ourselves, because I know we're all going to have those commitments in January, and we're here to support them. So okay, bye for now, and hope to see you again soon.